So is your issue that our taxes are not progressive enough, or what is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
issue?
yeah. That's my issue.
Like you're talking about like essentially federal income tax is not progressive enough, or that it's
Um,
based on income and that has flaws, or
well, I mean, I think that our overall system taxes people who make like lesser amounts too much, right? And it puts more of the burden on them rather than the burden on rich people as it should be because they have more disposable income.
Trump said the no taxes for people making under 150K. Is that something you would agree with?
I don't know how you'd flesh that out economically speaking, in terms of our
Like, you mean
deficits.
how that would be sustainable, like in
Yeah,
terms of,
yeah,
yeah.
but like,
Okay, fair enough.
and like ideally, like if we could fund all of our systems and have no taxes on people with income under 150,000, that would be great. You know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, I don't
I
disagree.
only would want a tax implemented if it's necessary to fund something. Right? That's why like when you talk about certain levels of taxation with billionaires, right? We're not even talking about funding policies at that point. We're just talking about an ethical position. And I think that taxes are only going to be something that we want to implement given that it's going to be funding or helping out some way. Otherwise, I wouldn't want
And
to implement the tax.
so if it doesn't help, so like aside, I mean, obviously, like I talked to Sam a lot about the like certain policies, and he brought up Social Security. But if if we see like if your theories are right, like do you know which U.S. state has the highest wealth disparity and poverty rates?
I don't actually know. I'm guessing it's some red state in the South.
No, it's California.
The wealth disparity?
Yeah, wealth disparities. I think it's well, maybe wealth
How is that
disparities
measured?
in
How
the
is that
top
measured?
five, but for poverty rates, it is California for sure. A wealth
Really?
disparity.
Where'd you get that information?
That's one sec. I forgot where exactly what my source was, but some measures of
Yeah, well,
poverty.
based
Like
on what measurement?
I think there's the SPM, which is the supplemental poverty measure, but there's other official poverty measurements. Um,
Okay, I'd
I
love
think
to
it's
see any statistic that says that. Because
okay. Yeah,
I don't believe that at all.
that you don't believe
Supplement
what the
SPM is highest for Mississippi. It's
yeah. So SPM
California is
is
not in the top 10.
for poverty measures.
Yeah, for SPM.
You might be looking at the one that's like just based on income, which obviously like you're gonna like obviously the states with less income is are going to be marked as less poverty, but
Okay.
or sorry, more poverty is what I meant. But I'm not talking about just like the
What measure?
$30,000.
So what measure? I just looked.
I forget exactly what it's called. Hold on.
Go ahead, you can go find it. I'll give you time. I'll talk to someone else if you'd like me to in the meantime.
Yeah, sure, sure.
To be honest, like when I heard the Jubilee debate, I really was like, I was wishing I was there to be able to debate you on all those points.
I felt the same way when you did the previous one. I think it was against Ben Shapiro or something. I don't
Ben
remember.
Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, yeah. I wish they gave me like a surrounded episode like that, dude.
Yeah, you should totally do it.
They haven't ever asked me. They have my number. They can
That's
contact me. They've
crazy.
never asked me once.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like surprising because there's one coming up next month, and I thought it was going to be you actually. So I'm like, uh,
They haven't had me on any. They haven't messaged
one
me
on
at
the
all.
sixth.
Only ones to be against the hero in the middle. But if
I
we'll
think
see,
it's just the SPM actually. It's even according SPM. It says that about 13 to 15% of people, because the other poverty
but
measures
what for Mississippi?
are
What is
not
it?
adjusted for cost of living. What's that?
For Mississippi? What is it?
It says Mississippi's around 11 to 12%. It's one of the.
Where are
It's
you seeing that?
historically hold on, the SPM website.
That's not what I see on the census. California is 10 to 12.4, and then practically every southern state is 12.5 or more.
Are you looking at the 2024
Oh, wait,
one?
hold up. I was looking at official poverty measure, supplemental poverty measure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, official.
Mississippi, and California are both over 12.5 for SPM.
Right, but California is higher.
Um,
Right, like obviously if you track like if it like look, the official
one of the
poverty
highest.
rate
It
is like
didn't have the highest, but it had one of the highest.
yeah,
It
obviously
wasn't the highest. You said it was the highest, right?
it is from I mean, I can pull up the chart, but
Go ahead.
I'm
It says in the census that it's one of the highest, not the highest.
okay, hold on, let's look through the whatever. While I look through
Louise, it said Louisiana, uh, states with the highest, 18.9.
So yeah, when we
But
look at SPM,
if you want to measure wealth disparity, someone did put this in the chat, and I should have brought this up earlier. The Gini coefficient. That's what the
oh
measure
yeah,
of
I've
wealth
heard of that.
inequality.
Yeah.
So, do you think the Gini coefficient is worse off in terms of inequality for California comparative to other places in the U.S.?
It might be around the same, but this is really not the point. The point is that
But that
if
was your
the
claim. That was your claim was that inequality was higher for California.
I'm saying that inequality is very high in California. Maybe look, if maybe it's not absolutely higher than every other state. Like, sure, I grant you that. I'm just saying that it's clear.
Then
It's
we
clear that these
then
programs don't actually impact. Like, if you actually cared about helping poor people and helping middle class people, like, it's very clear that these policies are not effective. That's all.
That's just
That's the
not
point.
true. That's just not true.
Well, okay.
When
Well,
you say
how
these
not?
policies are not effective towards helping people, what specific policies are you referencing?
Oh man. Yeah. One sec.
Because plenty of socialized policies are good. You could say there are some social policies you disagree with, but I might even agree with you that there's certain social policies I would disagree with in terms of like how far you go with the social policies. But that doesn't mean that everyone is bad.
I mean, I think most of them are bad.
Yeah, but we went
Uh,
over that earlier, and I talked about like Social Security, so
yeah.
Medicare,
So
so Medicaid,
you talked. Well, Social Security is like the number one line item on our federal budget, but sure, and obviously we're. Anyways, not to get back
yeah.
to
I
Social
mean, if you're going
Security,
to
but
be
yeah,
cutting,
I would say like SSI, housing assistance. You brought up Medicaid. I think it might be Medicaid. I always get the two mixed up between Medicaid and Medicare, but the Medicaid benefits. I'm pretty sure they're only eligible for people like making a certain number or below as a household. Um, so it
I mean, if
essentially
you want to
it
make
does.
better eligibility standards, sure.
Yeah, it does incentivize like single motherhood. Essentially, is what I'm trying to get at, and it does incentivize families from
So you don't
being
think single
together.
mothers should get more help?
I do think they should get more help, but if the thing is when you have policy like that, you do end up encouraging essentially like single motherhood
So what's your solution?
well, in this case I would say that it should be based on per individual or something. There should be another it needs reform
Oh,
at the very
so
least.
single mothers should not get extra help.
No, that's not what I'm saying, man. I'm saying that like if you incentivize single motherhood, you will see an increase in it. And
But what was your solution?
that the incentive structure should change for a lot of these
How
programs
so?
by taking into account uh, things like this and by
How
actually
so?
creating. Huh?
How so?
I guess the way you would do it is I don't know. I'd have to do more research on how exactly to do it. But I think that a lot of these programs are inherently flawed and they create a dependency state
But you don't
where
know how
it's
they're flawed. You don't know how to fix it. It's a
ideas
bit.
how to, it's not a simple fix because you have to really take into account like incentive structures and long term like yeah, like I could name a fix, but there might be things that I'm not considering so I'm not going to propose a fix here because I'd really have to like these things are not easy fixes. All I'm saying is that in their current
Well, then couldn't it be the case that this could be a limitation that exists, particularly with the policy, but it's still better than any other alternative?
but that's my whole point is
Because you
that
do want to provide extra help for single mothers because they need extra help.
they absolutely do, but
Same thing would
my
be with
whole
single fathers. Single fathers should also get the extra help because they're
I
a single person comparative to an individual or comparative to a two person or a three person.
look, I agree. I'm not saying that we shouldn't help people. Like obviously, like I want to help people. I'm just saying actually helping them is very different than virtue signaling help.
How are we virtue signaling help when we're actually giving them?
These programs create dependency on the government that is everlasting. Like the
Okay, so
families
don't give them
never.
any help.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm
but
saying they
you
need to
just
be
said it creates
restructured.
dependency.
Huh?
Taking care of children, does that create dependency?
Well, it depends what you mean by taking care of children.
Yeah, if you like take care of your children, if you like help with their
Like,
college, is that going to make
let's
them
say you had
dependent on you?
children. Wait. Let's say you or me had children and we're living in poverty, right? Like we're under the 30,000, whatever. If I gave you $4,000 and then you spend it on like I don't know a new watch or something, are you out of poverty now? Like, because technically you would be considered out of poverty, but you didn't actually
You
do
assuming
anything.
that poor people when they get money spend it on watches is the
No, no,
exact
obviously
issue.
not. It's just for the sake of the example. I'm just saying
No,
that
they
people.
spend it on food so that they can eat and their kids can eat. What are you talking about?
Well, there's no. We
You
have a
know who
ton of
spends it
food.
on watches? If you give
We
tax
have a ton
cuts,
of
if you
food
give tax
programs.
cuts to rich people, they spend it on watches. They spend it on
What do you
yachts.
mean they
They
spend it
spend
on?
it on
No, no,
things
they
that
don't.
give them
They
extra type
spend
of
it on
help.
the. They don't. They spend it on the economy.
What? You understand that?
What?
Wait, do you think that they have a higher likelihood to engage in consumer markets?
What do you mean? Absolutely.
No, they don't.
Who
With
employs
if
most?
you give more money to people who are lower income, they have a greater likelihood of spending that money in the economy and it compounding multiple times. Whereas for rich people, it has a less velocity. The reason why it
Explain
has
that.
less
Explain
velocity,
that less velocity.
yeah, because it
Yeah.
is the case
Sorry.
that yeah, they're not going to go out and spend it at their local grocery store if they get that money. It's going to either sit in a savings
But they
account or an investment account or some
they
other
they
type of.
invest it. What's wrong with investing it?
I'm saying that more is going to go through the economy if it is literally going to business to business to business to person to person to person rather than just sitting in an investment account.
What do you mean sitting in an investment account? What happens when it sits in an investment account?
I'm not saying when it sits in an investment account it's doing nothing. I'm saying is it compounds less in the economy. Jeez, are you listening to me?
I
I
am
said
listening,
the
but
velocity is
what is your
different.
evidence that it compounds less in the economy? Like if you create if you have a billionaire or whatever, like like a rich like average rich person, I guess, they're creating jobs. I mean, they're reinvesting in other businesses. Other businesses create jobs. Other jobs create wages and healthcare for people. Like, how is that bad? Like, I don't understand. Like, your premise is not.
What premise is what?
The premise that the money is worth or served less or less useful in the economy under a rich person is very flawed. Like there's no what is your evidence for that?
My evidence for the idea that like people who are lower income are going to be more likely to put that money into the economy.
Yeah, what is your evidence for that?
You can actually look at this paper here from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston that estimates the marginal propensity to consume using the different distributions of income and shows that the MPC is indeed lower at higher wealth quintiles. So that actually just means that like if you were to take money from people who are higher income and redistribute that to people who are lower income, it would actually increase how much consumption there was in the economy, which is actually shown within the paper itself.
I'm understanding.
No, you're not.
Large corporations employ people. Yes or no?
Which one spends a greater proportion of their income on consumer goods?
Obviously the poor person
So
percentage
if
of
the money that
income.
they get is treated as income, are they more or less likely to spend that on consumer goods comparative to rich people?
They're more likely to spend it on consumer
You
goods, but
just
they're going to
agreed with
get
me.
they're going to get that money. But my point is they're going to get that money no matter what, whether it's through the government, whether it's through their job, whether it's like we don't have it, like the people are going to like we don't have people aren't starving in this country. It's not so you're taking this issue
Insane claim. There are absolutely people that are food insecure. There are
where
absolutely. You think there's
I
no food
mean they're
insecurity in
starving
America?
in
To
malnutrition.
clarify,
Yeah.
you think there's no food insecurity in America?
No, I'm not saying food insecurity. Obviously, there's like people are getting like really
Okay.
shit
So
food.
there's no one starving in America that doesn't have money to pay for it?
I mean, we have programs all over the country
And so you're
to make
saying
sure you
not
get
a
food.
single person in America is starving?
I never said that. I'm saying that they have outlets to get
Are you
food.
saying that programs are the things that reduce people from starving? Are you saying social programs are doing that?
Uh, I mean, there's a mixture. There's social programs. There's food banks. There's obviously like a bunch of charities. There's a mixture of things. It's not a one fits all kind of equation here.
Do you think if we got rid of all food stamp programs that charities would take care of everyone?
There's probably certain areas that they no, not necessarily.
Okay.
But that's not what I'm advocating. I'm saying that
I
I'm
just
saying
think
that
I think it's ridiculous for you to say no one's starving. That's like a ridiculous statement.
well, like I'm saying because of lack of food. I'm not making the
Yeah,
claim
yeah,
that
people are absolutely starving because of lack of food.
where are people starving?
This is such an insane claim that I had to jump in again. Like he's so wrong. It's unbelievable. There are millions of people in this country that are food insecure. So I don't know what his definition of starvation is.
What? Well, before we bet,
What
I
do you
guess
mean by
you'd have to
starving? What
define.
do you mean by starving?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd have to define starving. I'm saying like that they're literally dying because they don't have enough calories in their
Okay, so
system.
starving to death.
Starving to death. Yeah.
So you only classify starving to be starving to death. If they don't die, then they're not
No, I'm
starving.
saying that I'm like what I no. I guess the way I would want to classify for this is like that they don't have access to food. Not that they don't choose to eat
Food
the, like
deserts?
to like where. Yeah.
You don't think there's any food deserts in America?
There are food deserts, but are people starving?
Oh my God. What do you mean by starving then? I don't, you just said starving was only if they were dying. Okay? Which I obviously don't think that's the only context of starving. There's no children starving in America under this guy's view.
I mean, where can children not get food?
Kimberly literally said that she starved as a kid and that they had food insecurity. Do you believe the people who saying that in the comment section?
Absolutely. My parents were on food stamps for a while, like
So there is
when
food
they were little, but that was
insecurity.
back in the that was a long time ago at this point.
So you think there's no food insecurity now?
I never said a claim about food insecurity. You're twisting it
So you okay?
intentionally.
So then there is food insecurity. You agree?
I said that from the get-go.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like we have awful food in this
If
country.
there's
We have
food
a hu-
insecurity, would you agree that food insecurity would necessarily entail that there's some level of starving?
if you're measuring food insecurity, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm just
Okay. Do you think taxation is theft?
absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Um, do you think that there should be any taxes?
Um like how much going back to like 19th century? Like
No,
how
should
much
no right now. Should there be any taxes in your ideal form of government? Should there be
I
any
think
taxes?
I'd be down to get rid of the federal income tax.
Okay.
Go
How
back to pre
prescription?
1913.
How do you pay for that?
Well, how do you pay for what?
How do you pay for that?
You pay for it by getting rid of all the bloat, all the government garbage.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid,
Um, well, I mean,
defense
Social
spending.
Security. Yeah, I mean, like pinch. Like I'd be dreaming, but yes, absolutely.
All of those
So,
things.
Medicare or Medicaid, at least. Social Security. I'm not really sure how you're gonna get rid of that one, like we talked about
You
earlier,
want to get
but
rid of Medicare?
um, or at least reform it. But
Wait, how are you going to get three trillion dollars
hold on,
every year?
isn't Medicare mostly funded by state taxes? Actually,
Wait, so no, listen.
wait, wait, wait,
Wait,
wait,
you
wait,
don't even think those
hold
should
on.
exist?
Wait. Let me look. From what? Wait, is Medicare? Hold on, let me look this up.
So again, in terms of Medicare, Medicare is a federal policy. I'm pretty sure it's mostly funded by federal. Um,
Oh
if
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
look,
it
if
is.
you want to look at Medicare, though, again, what you're not understanding with Medicare is that it is the case that plenty of seniors rely on this as a form of healthcare, would not be able to afford it otherwise, and probably could die if they don't have access to it. So what you're saying is we should cut Medicare to give greater tax cuts to rich people disproportionately.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You
That's a
agreed
straw
that
man.
income tax is
It's a total
progressive.
straw man,
Is
man.
income tax progressive?
Is income tax like federal income tax?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You just advocated for getting rid of federal income tax, which would be disproportionately cutting taxes for rich people. How is that wrong?
Well, what do you mean? How is that wrong?
How is my analysis wrong? Because I was just saying that you were going to cut taxes for rich people disproportionately, right? And you were going to, in order to be able to cut taxes for rich people disproportionately, you were going to cut Medicare, you're going to cut Medicaid, and you're going to cut all of these different types of social programs to raise $3 trillion a year in federal revenue. Preach the description.
Well, again, I mean, look, I understand that we have that the state is like we already have established a dependency. So yeah, we're dependent. Like I understand that, like old people, all these programs, like we're dependent. But it seems to me that just like zooming out a bit, just like as an ethos, you guys think that increasing the dependency on the government is going to benefit you, and that's fundamentally what I'm disagreeing with.
No, what you're saying is that we should get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, and you're trying to rebrand it as something that makes sense, but you're not telling us how you're actually going to, even if you were to cut Medicare and Medicaid, you're still not going to get $3 trillion in federal revenue. How are you going to pay for Social Security without Social Security tax? How are you going to pay for Social Security without an income tax? How are you going to pay for any of the social programs that we had during COVID without any income tax? How are you going to pay for any of the federal debt without income tax? How are you going to do anything
Yeah,
from a
so
federal government
I'll answer.
perspective without any income tax?
Yeah, it's a good question, and obviously the goal isn't to do it overnight.
Appreciate the
But I
guidance.
think
Thanks so much. Thank you.
I think over time it would be beneficial if we got off the governmental dependency train and we went back to being how we were, more self-sufficient.
Yeah, when there was more poverty, when there was more homelessness, when there was more people that
Yeah,
literally were
but
starving to death.
the conditions at the time were very different. Like in terms of access to like technology and all these things.
And what was that technology funded by? The government. The reason why
Like
that technology exists predominantly is because of public funding, right? You're talking about the internet,
where
you're talking
what
about
are you talking about?
computers,
Oh, you're talking
internet
about
and
but
computers, predominantly because of public funding.
well, internet and computers were quickly offset to the private sector. Do you think
Do,
that?
do
So
you do you,
wait.
do you
So let
agree
me get
that
this
they
straight.
were
You think that
do you agree that they were predominantly developed because of public funding?
they were developed, but they were
Predominantly, do you agree they were predominantly developed because of public funding?
they were developed by the public funding, but they were offloaded to the private sector because the public
Let me
sector
change
is
the
so
thing.
inefficient.
No, if
And
they're so
it's
inefficient,
so
then
dog shit.
why couldn't the private sector create them?
Because the access to the technology was kept secret. I believe it was a secret program
Kept
at the time.
secret.
Wait,
It's a
wasn't it a
secret
secret?
program from the government because it didn't exist in the free market yet. So why did the government have to do it if the free market would have done it anyway?
Again, wasn't it for security? It was like something to do with national security, right?
If there was a market that would have produced it, it would have produced it before. The market didn't exist to produce it.
Wait,
Therefore, it
so
had to
you
have been created by the government.
so what around you? So you're saying that the government produces shit? Like what do they produce exactly?
Investments, particularly to develop internet and computer. You
Which
know that was from governmental subsidies.
yes, I
and
understand that was from
investments.
government, and I also understand that it was offloaded to the private sector. And the
I
moment
know
that it
you've already
was,
said that. I mean, thank you for the dollar.
right, it
Thank you for
became
torquing.
instantly more efficient. Even from the moment that it. What I
Okay,
don't
then why
understand
did
is
the
like you're
private sector produce it in the first place? Are you saying that
because
innovation is more
it was
likely
a
to occur
government
for?
initiative that was
Yeah,
kept
because it's
secret.
government initiative that created
That
more
was kept
innovation
secret.
that created more innovation than the free market could by itself.
It was kept secret as a form of it was a form of
It
national
wouldn't have been
security.
able to stay secret if it was the case that there was a free market to produce it already.
But you're so obsessed with like the so what else does the government produce that you like so much? I'm just curious.
We've already gone over this. I think Medicare should exist. I think Medicaid should exist. I actually think that
That's
there should
not
be
them
universal health
producing
care in the
anything.
United States.
That's just
They're producing.
redistribution.
It's called production of a service.
Okay, well, it's called redistribution.
Redistributing a service.
You're redistributing. No, it's redistributing tax dollars. Like you're just
Yes,
taxing people and then
to fund services for people.
services that are not. But Parker, should we increase then the role of the public sector? Should we increase? Should we have more agencies and more regulation and more federal
In
workers?
certain sectors, yeah.
Like, do you think that? So you think that's a good thing? You think they're like effective at doing things?
Yeah, in certain circumstances, yeah. Like, do you think there should be murder laws?
Laws. So why does our judicial system like what does that have to do with the public sector? Like we have laws in this country.
Are you okay? Who are those laws enforced by?
Oh yeah, obviously like we have a judiciary, but like that's not what
What
I'm
is the
talking about when I
judiciary
say.
set up by? It's a public sector.
What's that?
That's public sector. These are not private courts.
No, I understand that. Like, look, as a free market guy, like you, yes,
Free,
the
you're
public.
not free market.
Well, maybe not in absolute terms, but yes, we have laws in this country. Like, I believe that we should absolutely, the government has a role to protect your rights, right? Constitutional rights, like your right to property, like that's a key part of the free
You
market,
just
right?
don't believe in any type of rights that extend to things like education and healthcare and childcare.
I do believe in that. I think the private sector is much better equipped at doing that.
No, do you believe in those rights publicly protected?
Which ones? You said education. What else?
Educational, healthcare, things like that.
No, I completely disagree with it. When you call healthcare a right, you're essentially forcing somebody else somebody else has to then supply it for you. That's not by definition.
Okay.
It's not a right.
Do you think safety?
Rights are
Do you think safety is a right?
well. What do you mean by safety?
Do you think that
Like
we
safety
have a
from
we
what?
do you think we have a right to be protected in terms of our right to life by the government
But safety from what? To what
from
extent? To
people
what
killing
degree?
us?
Oh, from people killing us? Yeah, and we have murder. Yes, we have murder laws. But what do you mean? The
Okay, wait,
safety?
wait, wait, wait. So why is safety a right? You have to require labor from
But
someone
that's
else to
not. That's
protect
not.
you.
Well, but that's not necessarily safe. Safety is a very broad term. Like
Well,
your headphone
you're saying that we have a right to be protected by the police, right?
by the police. Yeah, by the government.
Okay, so if we
The
have a right
government
if
should.
we have a right to be protected by the police, well then you're saying we have a right to someone else's labor.
Well, again, we fund certain programs, and the police doesn't
How
necessarily
is
have
that
to
any
be.
different from healthcare?
Well, the police doesn't necessarily have to be public.
Doctors are protecting you from natural phenomena harming you. Police are protecting you from other people harming you.
Understood.
Okay, so what's the issue? What's the difference that's relevant towards meaning that you should restrict one from a positive rights perspective, but not the other one?
Wait, you're saying that you should. You're saying for police, but not for who?
For healthcare, they're
Because
both
health.
protecting the safety of the individual, the well-being of
Well,
the
so
individual.
then where would you draw the line if it's not police and not healthcare? Like, do you want just the government to take care
Baseline
of?
standard for everyone, absolutely.
Well, should the government change, my baby's diapers? Like where do you draw the line? Like, so that they don't get like a rash on their butt? Like,
Where it makes sense and where it would be necessary.
where does it make sense though? Like in
Where does it
healthcare, it
make
doesn't
sense?
make sense.
How universal healthcare does.
How? No, it
How? How?
doesn't.
Because 45 to 60,000 Americans die every single year due to lack of health insurance. And I don't want so many Americans to die every year because of a preventative thing that we could have gotten rid of just because we literally put funding into the federal government that would be cheaper for us to operate
It wasn't
government.
cheaper.
It is. It is cheaper. If you look at
It,
countries
it,
around the world, they have half the per capita spending that we do with better health outcomes on average.
they had half, but what do you mean? So we put into law this ACA, this Obamacare, and we've had
Wait.
so many.
Do you agree that countries around the world have cheaper per capita healthcare
Yes,
systems with better
yes,
average
they
health
do.
outcomes where they take care of everyone?
They do. Some countries do. Yes, it depends. It depends.
So wait, the
But
best
it
country in
depends
the
what you mean
world.
by level of care. They
So,
don't
so,
have the same.
okay, so
They
the
don't have.
best country in the world cannot do universal health care better than the countries that
Well,
are already
well,
doing
hold
it better
on.
than
But
us?
you're purposely leaving something out of the question. It depends what you mean by level of care, because like quality of care matters. They have lower quality of care than we
Really,
do.
really, you're saying every system with universal health care has lower quality of care? How do you determine quality of care?
Yeah, generally speaking, like time, like
Fruity, thank you
the,
so much
the
for
the
the
amount of
subs.
time of like that you get seen, the wait lines.
So accessibility.
Yes,
Okay,
accessibility.
what is the accessibility in the United States for 45 to 68,000 Americans that die every single year due to lack of health insurance, or the 30 million that are uninsured, the 88 million that are uninsured or underinsured? That doesn't exist in
Right.
other countries around the world. So
So
please
I'm
explain
not
to me
saying that.
why you only check accessibility on the context of wait times because there are people that are actually able to get the care. The reason why wait
And I
times are
understand.
lower here is because people can't get the care. They can't afford it.
I mean, wait, you're saying that we let people die here?
Where's the confetti? Yes. 45 to 68,000 American lives lost every single year due to lack of health insurance because they didn't get access to preventative health care. So yes, thousands, tens of thousands of Americans die every single year because of two greedy American corporations that lobby the government in order to get private health insurance laws that put a health insurance company in between you and your doctor so that they can restrict you from getting care and so that people fucking die in this country because of lack of access to care, which were in
Right,
other
but
countries they would not have died.
but can I stop you there? Because that's exactly what my point is. Like you're saying, it's lack of access to insurance and lack of access to
Yeah, the
care.
insurance won't pay for it. You can't get
When
access to
when
care.
well, here's the thing. And this goes back to the impact of the Affordable Care Act. Between 2016 and 2018, about half of insurers left the marketplace for ACA because
Well,
what is
I'm
it?
not even advocating for just the ACA. I don't think that goes far enough. I think there needs to be a
But I'm saying
full-on
that's
public
exactly that.
option.
You're saying that they don't have
Full-on
access to
public
care.
option.
I'm saying that's exactly the problem. Like
No.
you want more of the problem to
No,
solve
no,
your
there needs to
problem.
be a more full-on public option like there is in other countries. I'm pointing towards countries, right, in which have public options that you agree to have better health outcomes, right? Less people die because of
I
lack
mean,
of access to care. So you're saying people in this country, because they can't afford it, should die.
no, that's not what I'm
No, that's
saying.
exactly what you're fucking saying. That's the result of
No,
what
I'm
you're
saying
advocating for.
I'm saying that the
And
ACA.
thank you so much for the signature, Jet. Thank you so much. What you're not willing to acknowledge is that people will die because of you not providing health insurance for them. People will die.
Insurance insurance was provided at a lesser rate because of this socialized medicine
You're
plans.
not listening, right? You
I
understand that
am
there
listening
needs to be a health insurance plan for every single American, regardless. The ACA did not even provide that. It does not go far enough. I don't know why you're
it,
holding me to
it,
the ACA when I'm saying we should go even further than the ACA.
because that's exactly what you're proposing.
It's
You
not though.
want
It's not. I advocated for further than the ACA, like other countries around the world that have public health options for everyone, not
right.
just for
But that's
the
exactly my
ACA
point.
is still left around. I think it's 5 to 10% of the population uninsured or underinsured.
Right, I understand. And you know what it did to the cost for regular people, like
If
healthy
you provided a
individuals,
public option,
middle
there would be
income.
more competition, which would lower prices.
Dude, they like ACA. All it did was increase
Do you agree
the
that it
deductibles.
would? Do you agree more competition lowers prices?
Generally speaking,
So
yeah.
do you agree that the government providing competition within the market to establish a basic standard level of necessary care is going to provide not only better health outcomes, but also not limit the market from being able to work around it?
When they did that,
All you're doing is providing a base standard level of care. And
they denied competition when they did that. That's why so many insurers left the market. That's
you're
why,
okay with
and
denying competition in some circumstances. Do you agree?
with denying competition,
Yeah,
no.
for example, some people that want to like kill people with healthcare, should we deny them from being able to do that? You're denying care in that
Wait,
circumstance.
wait. If they want to kill somebody with
Yeah, we
healthcare,
deny them. So we deny them from being able to do that. We deny them from providing their care.
so wait, in your worldview, we need to take a
Not all
totalitarian.
competition is good. We want good competition.
They did this with the insurers in the Pacific Palisades, and now it's all gone. It burned to the ground. So they did that here. They tried to control the
Wait, are
premium.
you arguing that because we have our health insurance policy, like that provides it to everyone, that like it's gonna burn to the ground? Are you okay?
Yes, that's exactly what always happens.
I'm about to kick you for saying such a stupid thing.
It's not stupid
That
when you
was
force when you.
that was an incredibly stupid thing to say.
No, it's not
No,
stupid.
no, no,
When
no. You're saying
you're in
providing
favor,
health care for people, providing health insurance for people leads to things burning down. Those have no
if
association at all.
if you have price controls, yes, that is exactly what
We're
happens.
not even talking about price controls.
You want
No,
to
I'm not.
control the prices. Yes, you. That's
No,
what you're
wait,
arguing
we're
for.
talking about establishing a basic standard of care, which is like a minimum wage. It's a
A
basic
minimum wage
standard of care.
is a price control.
Are you not okay with providing basic standard of care in some circumstances? You want to do that with police. You think that there's
It depends what you mean by standard of care.
you think police are providing a basic standard of care for safety? How is that any
Your
different than us providing a basic standard of care for healthcare?
what define standard? I don't know what you mean by standard of care.
Is
It
there a
sounds to me like you
standard
want
of
to force
care for
prices.
security? Do you think police should provide a standard of care for security? Like they're
They
there to
do have
protect you.
yes,
So
they do
that's
have
a
a
certain
standard.
standard of care.
When you say is it included? The thing is, you're saying standard of care, but you're ignoring the part where you're saying we should need to force prices. We need to force insurance agencies to pay certain prices. That is a
Pretty slow crowd.
totalitarian take. I mean that is like literally like authoritarian.
Then do you
And
want
it,
I'm okay with the government just running the insurance. I want the government to be the insurance. That's what I'm saying.
okay, well, what you said before is that the government should essentially force
Yeah,
insurances.
force itself into the market. Yes. Force insurance to be
And
provided
you
to
think
everyone.
that that's going to increase outcomes, health
Yes,
outcomes.
everyone should have insurance. Force insurance on everyone. Everyone has
Okay.
health insurance. Is that okay?
And we're forced to pay into it. Absolutely, of course, right? Like
That's how
naturally.
taxes work.
Okay, and this is exactly what I meant. This is why I believe that you guys want a socialist country. I mean,
Define
you
socialism.
well, it's what you said before. There's the definition, I guess, would be the workers own the means of production.
That's not what I was just advocating for.
But when yeah, so let me,
If you
but let
define
me
it in the
let me
same way that I
let me
define it, well, then you would agree that was not socialism. And
No,
the way
but
that you
hold
just
on.
defined it was incorrect.
But there's an alternate definition. Socialism
Go for it.
is essentially the transition phase between capitalism and communism that is marked by I
We're
would
not
say
trying to transition to communism by advocating
hold
for
on, hold
social
on, hold on.
health
But let me
policies.
finish. It's policies pushed by collectivist principles. That's what I would define socialism as.
Okay.
And yes,
so that
I
same
under-
thing is true for the work weekend. The same thing is true for Medicare. Same thing is true for Social Security. Same thing is true for basically every social
That's my
social
point.
policy that
That's my
exists.
whole point.
Which you said Social Security should exist. So I don't know what you're talking about.
in some capacity
Yeah.
at
So then,
this
are you a
point,
socialist?
because
Are you a socialist? Do you
no,
support
here, but let me
socialism?
explain why. But let me explain why. It's because
Firefighters are
we
socialism, police are socialism, any form of
well,
government protection is socialism, military socialism, right? You are such a pro-socialist candidate.